I always dreaded the attic. Growing up, it was more than just a dusty storage space. It was a realm of dark corners and whispered secrets. My friends would brag about the treasures they found in their attics. Old toys, forgotten books, and family heirlooms. But for me, the attic was a place where shadows danced, and the air was thick with an unsettling silence. Years later, when I moved back into my childhood home after my mother passed away, the attic loomed above me, waiting. I had promised myself I would finally face it, to confront the fears I had buried deep within me. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting elongated shadows across the floor, I could feel a familiar chill creeping down my spine. With a reluctant sigh, I pulled down the creaky wooden ladder that led to the attic. It groaned in protest, just as I remembered. A musty smell wafted down, mixing with the scent of stale air. I grabbed a flashlight, its beam weak but sufficient to pierce the darkness, and climbed the ladder. The moment I stepped into the attic, a shiver raced through me. Dust motes floated in the flashlight's beam, swirling like lost souls in the air. The space was cramped, filled with boxes piled haphazardly and covered in layers of dust. I took a cautious step inside, the floorboards creaking beneath my weight, each sound echoing like a heartbeat in the silence. I began to sift through the boxes, half-heartedly searching for anything of value or sentimental worth. There were old clothes, family photo albums, and broken toys that spoke of a time long forgotten. But as I rummaged, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The air felt heavy, electric, as if the attic itself was alive, pulsing with energy. After what felt like hours, I stumbled upon a small, ornate box tucked away in a corner. It was beautifully crafted, with intricate carvings swirling across its surface. My heart raced, with a mix of excitement and apprehension. I reached for it, my fingers brushing against the cold wood. Just as I was about to open it, a loud crash echoed through the attic, making me jump. The sound came from the far end of the space, where the shadows clung thicker. I shone my flashlight in that direction, but all I could see were the indistinct shapes of boxes and furniture draped in dust. My breath quickened. The attic had always felt unnerving, but now it felt like something was shifting, like it was alive. "Hello," I called out, my voice trembling. Silence responded, but my instincts screamed at me to leave. I turned back to the box, my curiosity overpowering my fear. I pried it open, revealing an assortment of trinkets. An old locket, a faded photograph, and a delicate porcelain doll with piercing blue eyes. The doll seemed to stare straight at me, its expression unsettling. I picked it up, examining its features more closely. Suddenly, the temperature in the attic dropped, causing goosebumps to prickle across my skin. A strange sensation washed over me, as if I were no longer alone. I could feel the weight of the atmosphere shifting, pressing down on me like a physical force. Then, I heard it, a faint whisper. I froze, heart racing. It was soft and indistinct, yet it sent chills down my spine. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was urgent, pleading. It seemed to emanate from the far corner of the attic, where the shadows were the darkest. "Is anyone there?" I managed to stammer, my voice barely above a whisper. Silence. Then the whisper returned, slightly louder this time. It sounded like a name. "Help me." I stood paralyzed, caught between fear and curiosity. Should I investigate, or was it better to leave whatever it was alone? Against my better judgment, I took a step towards the voice, drawn in by an invisible thread. As I moved deeper into the shadows, I felt the air grow heavier, thickening with an inexplicable dread. The whisper grew clearer, now sounding like a desperate plea. "Help me, please." I turned the flashlight toward the source of the voice, illuminating a small, dusty mirror leaning against the wall. The frame was ornate, with vines twisted around it, but the glass was cloudy and cracked. It reflected not just my image, but something more, a fleeting shadow behind me, lingering just out of sight. Panic surged through me and I spun around, but nothing was there, just the oppressive silence and the shadowy corners of the attic. My breath quickened as I faced the mirror again. The whisper had stopped, replaced by an echo of my own heartbeat. As I stood there, something caught my eye in the reflection. A flicker of movement, a figure barely visible, emerging from the darkness behind me. I turned quickly, but again, nothing was there. My pulse thundered in my ears as I faced the mirror once more. The shadow in the reflection became clearer, taking the form of a small girl, her face pale and eyes wide with fear. She looked directly at me, her lips moving as if trying to speak, but no sound emerged. My breath hitched in my throat, and I stumbled back, dropping the flashlight. The beam flickered and died, plunging me into darkness. Part 6. The plea for help. In that moment, fear overtook me. I scrambled backward, heart racing, the weight of dread suffocating. I could still see the outline of the girl in the dark, her expression shifting from fear to sorrow. "Help me," she mouthed again, and my heart broke for her. With a surge of determination, I gripped the edge of the box and held it close. "What do you want?" I shouted, my voice breaking the silence. The girl's eyes widened and she pointed toward the mirror. I felt an overwhelming urge to approach it, to touch the glass, but fear held me back. I couldn't shake the feeling that the attic was no longer just a storage space. It was a portal to something far more sinister. Part 7. The locket and the light. Then I remembered the locket, the one I had found in the box. I fished it out of my pocket and held it up to the mirror. The girl's eyes locked onto it, and she took a step forward, her hand reaching out toward the glass. "Is this yours?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. Her face softened, and a whisper of hope flickered in her eyes. I felt the energy in the attic shift, a palpable tension. Summoning every ounce of courage, I stepped closer to the mirror, holding the locket out. As soon as the locket touched the glass, the girl's hand passed through the surface, her fingers brushing against it. The moment our connection was made, the attic erupted with a blinding light. The shadows writhed and twisted, and I felt a rush of wind engulf me. Part 8. A transformation. With a deafening roar, the attic shifted around us. I was thrown back and the locket slipped from my grasp, falling to the ground. When the light faded and the wind ceased, I looked up to see the attic transformed. The girl was gone, but in her place was an overwhelming sense of peace. I stumbled back to the ladder, heart racing, and climbed down, leaving the shadows of the attic behind. Part 9. Facing the past. As I stood in the hallway, I knew I would never return to that attic the same way. The secrets it held were no longer just whispers in the dark. They were a reminder that sometimes facing our fears can free the lost souls that linger in the shadows.